with a special edition of World Today, where we will be talking about a possible war or the crisis between Russia and Ukraine. Though some of the Russian military has moved back to their bases, there are claims of Russian army still holding their bases at the border. India today is in ground zero, that is Ukraine, reporting on the crisis that has all the powerful international leaders on their heels, working out options to avoid a war. Here is Gaurav Sawant reporting from ground zero.
No let-up in the Russia-Ukraine standoff. The US claims Russia has stationed 190,000 troops in and around Ukraine's border. The new claim was made by Washington's ambassador to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, Michael Carpenter. Earlier, the US had pegged the number of Russian troops at around 1 lakh. If the claims are true, this is the most significant military mobilization since the World War. The US and NATO have said Russian President Vladimir Putin's declaration of withdrawal of troops from the border hasn't reflected on the ground. Putin himself has been silent after he made the withdrawal announcement.
There is a spike in tension. US President Joe Biden has said that Russia can attack Ukraine any time. American apprehension is that there would be a false flag operation, and the separatists targeting a kindergarten is an indication that, according to the Americans, that Russia is looking for some excuse to target Ukraine.
Meanwhile, Russia has conducted drills in the Black Sea amid heightened tensions. The Russian military has released videos of strategic air defense units firing surface-to-air missiles. As Russia turns up the heat, Poland has rallied behind Ukraine. Warsaw says it will help in any refugee crisis that might be triggered by a Russian invasion of Ukraine.
As for the crisis, that would certainly be what is caused if Russia attacked Ukraine. I want to stress that we are ready to help those who will be forced to leave Ukraine.
The deployment of thousands of Russian forces in Belarus, in addition to the thousands surrounding Ukraine to the east and south, put some of those forces within 200 miles of the Polish border. If Russia further invades Ukraine, Poland could see tens of thousands of displaced Ukrainians and others flowing across its border trying to save themselves and their families from the scourge of war.
Amid the military build-up, Russia has expelled the second highest-ranking American official from the US Embassy in Moscow. Washington has called the decision an escalatory step. While the saber rattling between Russia and NATO continues, people of Ukraine are living in uncertainty. Bureau Report, India Today.
Joining me from ground zero is Gaurav Sawant reporting from Ukraine. Gaurav, we know the situation is tense. Ukraine is preparing herself, but what are the people really saying to you? What's the sense that you're picking up from the ground?
Geeta, you are right. The situation is fluid. It is tense, but as you very rightly point out, it's not critical, at least not yet, and not in Kiev, the heart of Ukraine. In border areas, there is palpable tension, especially in some localities where, one, there has been shelling, and two, where people have been asked to leave the area or to go to move safer places. Now, whether this is being done to send out a political signal or otherwise will only be known when a clearer picture emerges. But at least as of now, in the heart of Ukraine, if we were to talk about Kiev, for example, universities are functioning. You can see the traffic on the road behind me, people going about with their normal business as usual. But the topic of conversation more often than not does come to the tense situation at the borders with Russia.
Right. Gaurav, also the fact that there are a lot of conversations that are taking place or will be on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference. We have leadership level talks, everybody looking to negotiate peace between Ukraine and Russia, but it doesn't seem like the crisis is going to end anytime soon.
Russia says it doesn't want war. Ukraine says it doesn't want war. America says it doesn't want war. Germany says it doesn't want war. France says no one wants war. And yet we see Russia and Ukraine at the brink of war. And this is how tense the situation is. Intense negotiations on whether Germany or France or other countries, and you've had the US President Joe Biden have a transatlantic conversation with multiple leaders in Europe hoping to find an amicable solution. But hardline adopted by all sides, at least as of now. Will there be middle ground? And before that middle ground is found, the kind of rhetoric that's appearing and coming from almost all sides, talking about an invasion that's imminent. The United States in the past has given deadlines, and Russia has tried to actually make fun of these deadlines, saying that our diplomats want to take leave. They'll take leave only when the next US deadline of the Russian invasion to Ukraine is clear. But amidst all of this, with the troops amassed on grounds, with satellite imagery showing additional bridges or pontoon bridges coming up, or missiles being deployed, the situation does appear to be rather grim.
Well, we've seen advisories, Gaurav, not just from India, but many other countries for their for their nationals who are there in Ukraine or studying in Ukraine. But the bigger worry for Indian students and many other students is that Ukraine, in order to maintain stability, is not allowing online or is not moving to online classes, which could mean that education could become a huge, or this entire process could hamper the students' education.
You've rightly raised the issue of foreign students. What do they do? There is uncertainty. Of course, as of now, students are being reassured by the university and faculty that the situation is calm. If we were to talk about India in particular, there is a background exercise that's currently underway to figure out how many students would need to be evacuated, if at all, and an air bridge to be made to the nearest country, which is safe. And then from there, students could be evacuated if there is a requirement from Kiev or other parts, and then taken to the nearest safe country, and then their journey back home. But would that actually be required? At least as of now, the assessment is that is not required. I visited a couple of universities here in the heart of Kiev today, and at the prestigious iconic Shevchenko University, the conversation was, yes, palpable tension. 2, foreign students are safe. They needn't go back. 3, just stay put where you are. Drills are there. Drills are being carried out. If the situation takes a turn for the worse, there will be ample time for evacuation to take place. Just now, it's not the right time.
Thank you, Gaurav. We'll keep coming back to you for all the latest developments from Ukraine. Many thanks for joining us for now. On Spotlight this weekend, I spoke with Ukrainian ambassador to India, Ambassador Igor Polika, to discuss what the situation is on the ground and the crisis unfolding in the East European nation of Ukraine. There are conflicting reports on what's really happening on the ground. But to tell us the real ground situation, I'm being joined by Ukrainian ambassador to India, Ambassador Igor Polika. Ambassador, many thanks for joining us here on India Today. Just to get a sense of what's happening on the ground.
Situation in Ukraine and around Ukraine is difficult. But I don't think it's critical. Our president, our Security Council, already addressed Ukraine, addressed foreign partners to keep quiet. We are looking for diplomatic solution of this conflict. For 8 years, situation is difficult, starting from 2014. As far as I can remember, there were a lot of exact dates of invasion which never came true. There was the meeting of Defense and Security Council of Ukraine, and its secretary, he emphasized we are not expecting any invasion on the 16th, 17th and onwards. Ukraine has received unprecedented international support. We are looking for peaceful solution. I am repeating once again, situation is difficult, but it's not critical.
Now let's see how the crisis between Russia and Ukraine has intensified over the past few months. Let's take a look at the lay of the land. Ukraine, former Soviet Republic, borders both Russia and Eastern European countries. Ukraine has a population of ethnic Russians with social and cultural ties with Russia. Ukraine is not a NATO member but a partner country, which means they are a part of the interoperability program. Russia opposes Ukraine joining the NATO and wants assurance from Western powers. President Putin believes that Western powers pose threat to Russia and opposes NATO's military activities in Eastern Europe. On the other hand, NATO has refused such allegations and claims that only a small number of its member countries are really a part of or share borders with Russia. Moreover, it is a defensive alliance and not an offensive one. When Russia annexed Crimean Peninsula in 2014, NATO did not intervene but deployed troops in Eastern European countries to ensure their security. Russia's demand includes NATO should stop expansion eastwards. Russia has reduced troop deployment across borders after showing its military might and has said it is ready to negotiate. But the US calls Russia a serious threat, adding that a considerable amount of troops are still deployed at the Russia-Ukraine border. Here's a report.
The Russian Defense Ministry on Tuesday released video of what it said were some of its troops returning to base after exercises near Ukraine, leading some to hope the drums of war might be fading. But U.S. President Joe Biden responded that Washington had not yet verified the demobilization and said Russia still very much posed a threat.
We have not yet verified the Russian military units are returning to their home bases. Indeed, our analysts indicate that they remain very much in a threatening position. And the fact remains, right now, Russia has more than 150,000 troops encircling Ukraine and Belarus and along Ukraine's border.
Russia did not say how many units were pulling back. Its deployment of some 130,000 troops to the north, east, and south of Ukraine triggered alarms in Western capitals that a military operation could be imminent. Russian President Vladimir Putin, who met with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz on Tuesday, denied again his country sought conflict.
По поводу хотим мы этого или нет? Конечно, нет.
Do we want it or not? Of course not.
Мы и выдвинули предложение,
This is why we have offered our proposals to start the negotiation process,
которого
which should lead to an agreement of providing equal security for everybody, including our country.
нашу страну.
Speaking from the White House, Biden said he was committed to finding a diplomatic solution to the crisis, but he warned the Russian people that military aggression in Ukraine would be bloody, costly, and would be met with international condemnation.
The world will not forget that Russia chose needless death and destruction.
While Biden said he would not commit U.S. forces to fight in Ukraine in the event of a Russian attack, he said the U.S. would defend, quote, every inch of NATO territory.
With the full force of American power.
U.S. troops have already begun reinforcing NATO allies Poland and Romania.
Welcome back to World Today. Now let's take a look at the impending economic crisis should there be an invasion of Ukraine by Russia. It's the economic impact which will be felt with the conflict between Russia and Ukraine is the reason why Europe is a divided house. Now, what's the impact? Rise in fuel prices that could restrict energy trade between European nations and Russia should there be a conflict, and sanctions against Russia. It happened in 2009 when there was massive tension between the West and Russia cut off gas pipelines and gas supplies into Europe, leading to many deaths. That is going to be a huge risk. The other important factor now is the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, one that the United States of America says will be shut down should Russia invade Ukraine. But the fact is that Nord Stream goes from Russia into Germany, passing through key Eastern European countries that have stakes and get paid, earn revenue, earn a lot in terms of the kind of economic security that this brings along. For Germany, gas is essential. They're still dependent on Russia, and it doesn't seem like Germany wants to be a part of any conflict that Russia and Ukraine could end up having. On the 15th of Feb, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that Moscow does not want a war with Europe, and it has started partially withdrawing troops from the border. The United States of America and NATO did not buy Putin's declarations and said they have not seen any de-escalation on the ground. A White House official further claimed Putin has sent 7,000 extra troops to the border. Many of the international watchers and stakeholders are now asking only one question: when will the Russia-Ukraine crisis come to an end?
With Russia announcing a partial pullback of forces, could the crisis in Ukraine be over? NATO certainly doesn't think so. The alliance has accused Russia of, in fact, sending more troops to the border. This was Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg on Wednesday.
They have always moved forces back and forth. So just that we see movement of forces, so battle tanks doesn't confirm a real withdrawal. It has been a bit up and down, back and forth all the way, but the trend of the last weeks and months has been a steady increase in the Russian capabilities close to Ukraine's borders. So Russia retains the capability of a full-fledged invasion of Ukraine.
Moscow announced a partial pullback of forces from near Ukraine on Tuesday. Russia's defense ministry on Wednesday published video of military vehicles leaving the Crimean Peninsula, an area Moscow seized from Ukraine in 2014. In spite of this, a senior Western official speaking on the condition of anonymity said intelligence showed Russian military exercises would be at their most active during the remainder of February. He said there were no credible signs at this point that there would be any kind of military de-escalation. NATO is considering new steps to deter Moscow on its eastern flank in response to the Russian threat in Ukraine's north, east and south. Russia says it never planned to attack Ukraine, but wants to lay down red lines to prevent its neighbour from joining NATO, which it sees as a threat to its own security. Both sides have said they remain open to diplomacy.
While the West is threatening war, Russia already has a plan in place, a multi-axis attack. It is not just going to be from Russian territory. Russia has help from its ally Belarus on the north, where it is going to look at supporting and seeking support from Belarus in capturing territories, a very important key partner. The other region is the Donbas area, that is rebel-held area within Ukraine, stands against Ukraine and has a lot of support from the Russian forces. A lot of presence of Russian forces in that region. Capturing territory from there is going to be rather quite smooth for Russia. On the other hand, we see if you come down, there is the Crimean Peninsula that was captured by Russia and now is under Russian control with massive deployment in that entire area. Should Russia enter Ukrainian territory from Crimea, it would be quite a smooth affair for Russia, and also for Ukraine to be defending a multi-pronged attack from various quarters is going to be a very difficult ask. That's all in this edition of World Today. Thank you for watching our special coverage on the Russia-Ukraine crisis. A lot is at stake, not just for the global community, but also for the people of Russia and Ukraine. See you next week.